in, and all right, Ravi, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I hope you are enjoying your Dev Summit. And after I have very big shoes to fill, I think James has given so much about Xamarin. So I'll try to cover up as much as I can for Blazor. So my session is full stack web development without JavaScript. Uh, so before starting, let me tell me something about myself. I'm a certified Azure Solution Architect, community speaker, and founder of .code Techies. All my social handles are Techie Rathor. So if you just Google Techie Rathor, you can find me everywhere. So without further ado, let's get started with the agenda for today. So today, my first we'll talk about full stack development decision confusions. What we have, what is full stack development, full stack web development, what are the confusions developer face during doing full stack development. Then we will talk about what is Blazor, how does it solves this problem. I'll show you something about the Blazor project structure, what are the controls, how it works, and all those things. Then we'll see the difference between various Blazor hosting models. And then we'll see some of the third-party libraries which are available for Blazor. And what are the future possibilities, or what are the possibilities with Blazor? What kind of applications you can develop, which what people are doing, and what we can do in future. And of course, at the end, we'll talk about how to get started with Blazor. And then I'll take some questions. So when we talk about full stack web developer, the official definition for full stack web developer is that someone who can work on both backend and front end. So someone who knows about all the backend and front end technologies. Usually the front end technologies are mainly based on JavaScript technologies, like you have Angular, Vue, React as a front end, and then you have .NET, Node, Java, Deno, these as a backend. So when we see in the form of a diagram, we can see here like this, that when we are doing a full stack development, we have a backend like this, which has Node, .NET, Go, or Java. And we have a front end like this, where we have Angular, React, Vue, or any kind of JS framework which communicate with the backend. So this is fine, this is good, but the problem is, like, there is a lot of problems with this kind of approach. The problem is, the first one is, whole lot of people don't like JavaScript. Like it's not like that they don't like it, it's like they are not comfortable with it. Many people who are working on, who have worked on Windows application, who have worked on ASP.NET, regular ASP.NET web forms, or regular ASP.NET MVC, who has not done work much on JavaScript, they face a lot of issues, or they are not that much comfortable on learning JavaScript framework, because there are many issues behind that, like they are dynamically typed, they have issues with the browser support, and it changes too fast. Like you have after every year or so, you have new JavaScript framework with completely new changes and new features. So in that scenario, another problem is, like, most of these JavaScript frameworks follow the single page architecture framework. So if you see, for single page architecture, the problems we face are, we have two different teams, the front end team and the back end team. And the front end team is in most of the cases, they are on a different technology, whether it is .NET or Go or Java. They are working on a different technology, so they have different code base. And backend, it's almost like when we talk about native mobile development, where we have different teams for doing different tasks. Similarly, training to be a full stack web developer is a costly affair. And when we use different language than JS in backend, then sharing code logic is also a problem. And now, currently, most of the application have different backend than JS. They are either written in .NET, or they are moving towards .NET Core, or they are written in Java or other technologies. So there are a lot of these problems in when we follow this current approach of developing web applications using JavaScript as a front end and different technologies as a backend. Especially the problem is for .NET developers who are in the middle of their career, so they have to move. They are growing, so they think that what should we do? Which technology we should go on? So we have Blazor as a solution for this. So what is Blazor? Blazor is basically a free and open source web framework that enables developer to create web apps using C# and HTML. So you don't have to learn JavaScript for this thing. Yes, your JavaScript knowledge will be, of course, an added advantage, but you don't require that much JavaScript that which you need to learn in case of developing web UI using regular frameworks, that is Angular, React, or Vue, because they all have different approaches to follow. Even jQuery has a different approach. So even if you just know simple JavaScript or jQuery, it will work like it will work well. Another thing is it uses Razor syntax. So the people who are already working on ASP.NET MVC or who are working on ASP.NET Core MVC, it is very easy for them to learn because it uses the regular Razor syntax. And it uses the component-based single-page architecture. So it uses the same component-based single-page architecture which is used in all the new technologies, that is Angular, React, or any other front-end framework. So it uses this component-based architecture. There are currently two hosting models for hosting your Blazor application. One is Blazor Server and another one is Blazor WebAssembly. So Blazor Server is like available. You can host it on the server using .NET Core base, and Blazor WebAssembly you can even host as a static site. So these are currently two hosting models available for Blazor development. So when we talk about now, when full stack development using Blazor, so you can see we have the same backend technologies, but for front end we have Blazor for doing all the tasks which we used to do. For that we have to do earlier using a couple of different languages. So we need not to learn so many languages. We can do everything with the same C# and .NET. So if you are a C# developer and you have a .NET background or .NET backend, you can very easily move to front end using Blazor. So why you should be interested in this? So the first is, of course, C# is a fantastic language. It's not like JavaScript is not, but yes, C# is very good language because it has more capabilities, it has more features as compared to JavaScript. Another one is that since Blazor is based on ASP.NET Core, the performance-wise, Blazor is much more faster. It is, as you know, like ASP.NET Core is number 7th on Tech Empower performance listing. It's 8 times more faster than Node.js. So when you host a Blazor server app on ASP.NET Core or .NET Core, it is available and it is much more faster than Node, much more faster than Django, and much more faster than any other server. And of course, the best benefit is that you can share logic with existing .NET background. Right now, I have developed a couple of applications where I have used the same code which I have used in my web application, and like you can share the same model, so you don't have to write the different model for client and server. You can use the same model classes as .NET standard library, and which I have done. Not only this, you can even share the code with your Xamarin application. So most of us people joining here are Xamarin developers. So you can also share your code with Xamarin applications. So a lot of code sharing is there. So you don't need to write new code for doing the for client-side development, also for client-side applications. And of course, it consolidates the front-end and back-end team together, and it's more of a one team, and you become a complete full stack developer who knows almost everything, almost end-to-end development. So let's let's go to some practical implementation. So right now I'm in my Windows machine where I have Visual Studio 2019 open. So let's see how we can create a new Blazor application. It's pretty simple step. Many people have told you, but let me repeat the process once again. It's very simple. It will load all the Razor templates, and you can just select a Blazor app. It's already there in my recent application list. So I'll select the Blazor app, and when I hit next, I can just give the name .NET Summit, and I hit the create button, and we'll get the option to select the two options. So that is Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly. And you can see whatever features we have for developing our web application, ASP.NET Core web application, the same features we have that for Blazor also, whether you use Blazor server or Blazor WebAssembly. So when you use Blazor server, you have the option to implement authentication. You can use the individual user authentication, which is your identity server based authentication, or you can use the Windows authentication or Active Directory authentication. So you have the feature to implement authentication also. So whatever feature you have in regular ASP.NET Core applications, all those features are available in Blazor server as well as Blazor WebAssembly. When we select Blazor WebAssembly, we also have options to either, by default, it is a static hosting. It doesn't support like ASP.NET Core. If you select this option, it will show you the ASP.NET Core hosted Blazor application. And if you select progressive web application, it will by default give you the out-of-box or boilerplate code as your Blazor application to be a progressive web application. So I'll go with the Blazor server app. And while it's creating this thing, so I'll show. So this is our regular Blazor app. When we see here, we have our regular Blazor app, and let me show you the structure of this app. So as you see, I have used the server setting, ASP.NET Core server setting. So that's why Blazor server app. So that's why it's asking for ASP.NET Core. And you can see that it has the same structure of ASP.NET Core, that it has program.cs and it has startup.cs. So it has startup.cs, it has program.cs, and it uses the same methods and functions of which we have in ASP.NET Core application. So you can see this is like we are configuring the services here. We are adding the Razor pages and adding the server-side Blazor. So this is for server-side Blazor. And when we talk about the structure of the application, we have this thing. So this is the Blazor project structure. So we have one app.razor. So this app.razor is the base of the application. It is the complete base of your Blazor application, which loads the first page of the application. Even when the HTML is, when the Blazor code is converted into HTML code, this app.razor, you will see that there is a tag called app, and inside that all your Blazor code will be loaded. So let me run this thing and show you that source code, and you will be able to better understand that. So while running, while it is being run, let me show you the rest of the thing. So we have this shared folder. Yeah, so this is coming up. So in the meantime, let me show you. So we have this shared folder. So this shared folder has main layout, nav menu, and this survey prompt. So these are all components. So as I said, these are Blazor is basically a component-based architecture. So you have everything as a component. These pages, all of these pages are components. So this host.html, this is the first page, or you can say the single page or SP architecture-based page, which is which hosts all the controls of the Blazor. And then these rest of the pages are your separate pages, or you can say separate components which you can utilize. So when I run this, so you can see this is running here, and this counter application is running like this. And then we have this fetch data, which is showing the this is the default or boilerplate Blazor control, Blazor project template, which has all the Blazor related features implemented. So it has this thing, and then we have this forecast code and this. So this is all component based architecture. So you can see here, this is all component based architecture. This counter page, this you can see here, this is a page component where we have this routing directive. This basically this controls the URL. So this is counter is this routing URL, and you can see here that counter is starting here like this, and you can see this one, that this is the root here. Let's say this is the index page, and I want to use counter here like this. So if I put counter here like this and I run this code, yeah, it's
Hey,
running.
Ravi, just a quick thing. Maybe you want to increase the font size a little bit so that everyone can see
Okay,
it well.
okay. Sorry. Can everyone can see now?
Yeah, looks good now.
Okay, so when I run this thing now, you can see here the counter is coming on the index page. So when I click on this, so this is completely component based architecture. Another benefit of this Blazor being component based architecture is, as I showed you, this sample application is basically a Blazor server application. I have another application here. I have opened this one. This is basically a and sample application which I use for my blogs. So this one. So this is basically a sample application which I use for my blogs. That is TR Blazor EX, and I have implemented all the examples here. Let me
Ravi, if you're showing the Solution Explorer, maybe zoom in as well because on the
uh,
stream it's very low.
okay. So yeah. So I hope you guys can see it now. So this is the Blazor server. This is the sample application TR Blazor EX, which is available on my GitHub. I usually use this sample application in all my blogs. So we have this Blazor Wasm here, and we have this Blazor server here. Both of these are two different projects. And just like Xamarin, what I have done in our Xamarin application, what we have is one common UI page, or sorry, one common UI project, which is our .NET Standard project. Similarly, we can create a Razor class library, which is again a .NET Standard project, and we can do all the UI, or we can move all the UI in this Razor class library, and we can utilize this in both in Blazor server as well as Blazor Wasm. So let me show you this run this application, and this is the same project code, but I have moved it in separate UI. So if you see here, let me run right now. The default project is Blazor Wasm. Okay, so if I run this thing, it will show me. So the UI will be exactly same in both the scenario. So this is how we can basically change or yeah. So if you see here, it's loading. So see, this is Blazor Wasm. So it's taking some time here. And how we know that this is Blazor Wasm? We'll go in the tools. We'll see in the developer tools, and in the network section. If you see here, if I hit refresh, you can see here. So this is our Blazor WebAssembly.js is being called. This is the local host JS, and this is the same application. So it has counter. I have moved the counter here as a component. Then I have created one list example. So I have written a blog about creating a checkbox list in Blazor. So I have added this here in this project itself. So you can see this is our Blazor WebAssembly application. And now if I want, I can, what I'll do, I'll just stop this here, and I'll set this server as a startup project. So now I have set the server as a startup project. And when I run this thing now, so now you can see now that error screen didn't came because now we are using the Blazor server. And if we see here, you can go in tools, developer tools, and network. Now when I refresh this page, you can see here we don't have the WebAssembly page. You can see this. We have Bootstrap, Min, and all those things. We don't have the WebAssembly page. So sorry. So we don't have the WebAssembly page. So this is how what we can do is like Blazor can give you the option to share your code between Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly, and even the future implementations of Blazor, which will I'll tell you like what all further possibilities of Blazor are. Like we can even create desktop applications using Blazor. So for that also you can use the same UI. I am doing the same kind of implementation in couple of my applications, and I have written a blog about this also, that how we can create this thing. Let's see as I was explaining the structures. So this shared section is your common. This is where you'll keep your common code. That is your like layouts and controls. So layout is this main layout is it uses this layout component base, which is basically used for it's similar to your layout.razor in your MVC application. So this is where you can integrate your nav menu and other things. So this is main layout page, and as I have created this checkbox list.razor as the shared project. So this is shared page or shared control. So that's why I have kept it here. We can even move this Razor class library as a separate project. It's already a separate project, so we can create a DLL out of it, and we can utilize in another Razor application also. Similarly, this imports.razor is basically imports used for declaring all the common using statements. So when we declare all the common using statements here, we don't need to declare it in other pages or on the various pages or controls which we are creating. We don't need to declare this common here. So we can utilize it. All the pages can change their objects or whatever components we are using. We can utilize this thing. So using this, we can done. And if you see the implementation here in my regular Blazor application, in the pages, we have this host.chtml. Whereas if we see the Blazor WASM structure, so in Blazor WASM, we have host.index.html, which is there in www root. And in our Blazor server, we have this pages, and inside pages, I have this host.chtml. So you can see here in host.chtml, we have this Blazor framework, Blazor server, and in our index.html, we have this Blazor WebAssembly. So this is how the component-based architecture of Blazor works basically. Okay. So let's move to slides now, how we can share the logics and all those things. So now we can see I showed you what are the different hosting models of the Blazor, Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly. I also showed you what is the component structure of Blazor, how does Blazor works, and how we can achieve a implement a common UI to utilize in both the hosting structure. So when we should use which hosting structure, let me tell you that. So we have client side, that is Blazor WebAssembly. We can use for developing progressive web apps. You can see that while creating the project itself, we have the option to select the project as a progressive web app. So if we want to create a progressive web app with a zero latency UI, or we want to host static files, or we want to create a offline applications, in all these scenarios, we can use Blazor WebAssembly. When we talk about Blazor server, so if you want to use a thin client application or even a regular web application, and you want to utilize the full runtime support of .NET server or Blazor server, .NET Core, then you can use Blazor server. So if you are using Blazor server, you will get all the .NET Core support, all the features which are there in ASP.NET or .NET Core framework. You will be able to utilize those features on Blazor server. And of course, in some scenarios, like you are creating some application or something which is basically copyrighted for your company, in that scenario also you can use Blazor server because all the code is on the server. Another thing, another benefit of Blazor server is that you can move your your current web form application, because even Microsoft is writing a documentation, and Jeffrey Frizz or C# Frizz is creating Blazor web forms control. So you can migrate your current web forms applications to a Blazor server application. So Microsoft is suggesting this thing, and many people are doing that you can convert your existing Blazor ASP.NET Core web forms application to Blazor server application. So all the code is on server. So in this scenario, you can use the Blazor server. Third-party Blazor components. Most of the third-party Blazor components are available via NuGet, and we can use all the JavaScript libraries available for any web application in Blazor, also using JavaScript interop. So JavaScript interop is a feature where we can call C# code in JavaScript and JavaScript code in C#. So all these features we can do in Blazor itself, whether it is Blazor server or Blazor WebAssembly. And the Blazor specific libraries are like open source libraries. Many open source libraries are available. Blazorize is one of them. Then we have Matte Blazor. Then we have Radzen Blazor controls. So all these three are like Matte Blazor and Blazorize are open source. Matte Blazor basically uses Material UI. So those of you who are fond of Material UI or material design, they can use Matte Blazor for that. Those of you who want to use Bootstrap based UI, Blazor by default support Bootstrap based UI, but I personally choose Blazorize to use because Blazorize is again open source and it supports more CSS library than Matte Blazor, because Blazorize supports Bluma, Bootstrap, and even your material design, whereas Matte Blazor is only specific to material design. Then there is Radzen Blazor controls. So Radzen Blazor controls I specifically listed here because these are of course free controls. So you can use these Radzen Blazor controls as free controls. But one benefit you have, so those of you who are working in companies and who want to go for low code or faster low code, no code development. So there is one Radzen UI generator or Radzen UI. So you can search for Radzen and you can get there is a Radzen UI generator using which you can create a whole Blazor application using a drag and drop feature. So that is there. So you can utilize, you can even implement no code or low code development using Blazor server and Radzen. So that is one of the benefit of using Radzen. Then our usual vendors of UI, that is your Infragistic, Syncfusion, Telerik, all of these have created Blazor specific UI controls, which you can utilize in your regular Blazor application. Now let's talk about the possibilities of Blazor, what all we can develop using Blazor. So when we talk about Blazor, we have right now client-side development available using Blazor WebAssembly and server-side development using Blazor server. Then there is, you can develop Blazor desktop application using Electron.net or using Web Window. So Web Window is another experimental framework which helps you create cross-platform desktop applications using Blazor or any JavaScript framework, just like Electron. It's experimental and it's also developed by Steve Sanderson, who created Blazor. So this is Web Window is also available as a NuGet package. So using Web Window, you can create cross-platform desktop application. The only requirement for using Web Window is that you need to have a Chromium-based browser on your machine. So if you have installed Edge Chromium on your machine, whether it is whether it is Mac or Linux or Windows, then Web Window will work directly. Whereas Electron basically ship its own Chromium-based browser along with their framework itself. However, Web Window, the footprint of Web Window is very smaller to Electron. So when you create a Blazor plus Electron desktop application, the setup or the whole footprint of that application would be around 150 megs or 120 megs. Whereas when you create a Blazor plus Web Window application, the footprint of that application would be around 20-25 megs, not more than that. So you can try that. It is not committed as of now that when it will be released, but people are of course using Blazor plus Electron very much. Blazor plus Web Window is used by people like me who are experimenting with Blazor. So those people use Blazor plus Web Window, but it is there. So you can create desktop applications also using Blazor. Another thing is Blazor mobile binding, which was announced in Blazor full day conference, which happened in January of this year. So Blazor mobile binding, using Blazor mobile binding, you can create native mobile applications for Android and iOS using Blazor itself. So not the same UI. You have to write separate UI for mobile, of course, but it has the controls similar and the structure similar to your Blazor application. So there also you can use the layouts, and then there are stack controls, checklist controls, and all the separate controls available, using which you can create Blazor mobile application. So you can use the Blazor mobile bindings to create Android and iOS mobile application. Under the hood, of course, it uses Xamarin for creating the UI. So these are the possibilities with Blazor. So you can use Blazor in so many ways. Not only this, people there was one community presentation. I forgot the name. James know his name. I think Gordon something from Australia. He presented that how he has used Blazor and Xamarin to create a complete end-to-end application, whether it is mobile and web application using Blazor server and Xamarin, and he has shared the most of the code, the MVVM code, the code logic of changing the UI from the view model. So all those things can be done if you are using Blazor as your development framework. So how should we get started with Blazor? So to get started with Blazor, we have Visual Studio 2019. By default, when you install Visual Studio 2019 with ASP.NET, it will you will have the Blazor projects included in it. And you can visit the official doc site, that is blazor.net. There you can get the step-by-step guide on how to get started with Blazor. Apart from this, there are a lot of community docs available, like this Stephen Tree Kramer Awesome Blazor, and then Adrian Torres Awesome Blazor. Both of these GitHub libraries have list of all the Blazor contribution done by community as well as Microsoft. It has list of all the various tutorials available and everything. So these all this is using these all resources, you can get started with Blazor very easily. So I think I have completed on time. I finished it in almost 40 minutes, I guess, and we are done. So any questions? I'm ready for questions now.
That was super fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Durgesh as well, so that they're also watching the Twitter to see any questions. And okay, let me add some questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a question: can we use Blazor assembly to hit REST API like Node, Java, or Go?
Yes, of course, we can do that. As I showed here, I need to I can open, as I said, I have created applications using Blazor WebAssembly, and right now there is one client application which is running using Blazor WebAssembly. So yes, we can hit REST APIs using Blazor. You have that system.net.http available as a NuGet. So you can just use the same way you call REST APIs in Xamarin. You can use the REST APIs in Blazor also using the HTTP client. So I have done that, and you can do that also. And then there is, if you are using Blazor WebAssembly and the preview version of .NET Core, then you can also get one library called system.net.mvc Blazor HTTP client, which supports you, which has integration of HTTP client and your system.text.json. So you can use the JSON async and get JSON async, post JSON async. Those are methods you can use from Blazor WebAssembly, but that is experimental. I personally use system.net.http client, which is the default client for using or calling WebAssembly, calling REST APIs from your Windows or web applications in .NET Core. So using that, you can call the REST APIs.
Okay, so we have another question. What are the development options with Blazor in cloud?
So when we are using
deployment options.
Okay, deployment options. So when we are using Blazor in cloud, we can deploy anywhere where we are using .NET Core. So if you have a .NET Core server, you can deploy it there. So it can be deployed on a Linux machine. It can be, if you are using Blazor WebAssembly, it can be deployed at a static site also. So you can deploy your Blazor WebAssembly code, Blazor WebAssembly application as a static site on GitHub pages, or you can deploy it on your AWS volume, your shared spaces, and then you can give a URL and you can utilize it. So that is for Blazor WebAssembly. For Blazor server, you will require a proper .NET Core server. So it can be a self-hosted .NET Core server on a Linux machine, or you can use app service, which is given by your Azure. You can even host in IIS. So like right now, my current project implementation, which I have done for my client, I have hosted the Blazor server on IIS. So you can also host it on IIS. It can be hosted on app service. It can be hosted as a self-hosted service. So whatever, so Blazor server can be hosted in all the different ways. A .NET Core or ASP.NET Core application is web application is hosted in the same way Blazor can be hosted, and Blazor WebAssembly can be hosted as a progressive web application or static site. So these are all hosting options available.
Cool. Does Blazor support single page applications and lazy loading features?
Blazor is based on single page architecture itself. As I showed you that Blazor uses single page architecture and everything is a component. So yes, it supports single page architecture, and it is based on single page architecture. Regarding lazy loading, I'm not very much sure about it, but I think it is coming up in with .NET 5.
Can you tell the main difference between JavaScript and Blazor?
JavaScript, you have to, like, the main difference between JavaScript and Blazor is like using JavaScript, you can access the, you can't, like you can use the UI, you can change the UI similar, but you have to use JavaScript for that. But in case of Blazor, you can write C# and Razor code to call your, to manipulate your DOM or to manage your component. So the primary difference is that you can use C# code instead of JavaScript. You can use C# code, and JavaScript is also available. So that is one of the added advantage, that when you are using Blazor, you have C#, Razor, and JavaScript available for your users. Whereas when you are just using JavaScript, then you have only JavaScript available for users. And for that, you need to know about JavaScript frameworks. That is your whether it is jQuery or your Angular or React. So all these, you need to know about nitty-gritties of those frameworks. Whereas when you are using Blazor, you just need to know about C# syntax and like small JavaScript if needed.
I missed some questions from before, so I'm just going to add it back. Does Blazor run on Kestrel?
Yes, Blazor of course run on Kestrel. Like I didn't show you the example, but Blazor server run on Kestrel, because as I said, Blazor server uses the ASP.NET Core hosting model, or whatever features are available in ASP.NET Core. Those all are by default available in Blazor server. So Blazor server runs on Kestrel. Blazor WebAssembly doesn't run on Kestrel. It's like it can run on Kestrel also, but it is by default, the whole code is downloaded on the client side. So like it run on the browser of the client, but it can be hosted on Kestrel, just like Blazor server.
Cool. One question: does Blazor support server-side rendering? If yes, do we need to do any changes on server-side, or will it take care from Blazor itself?
So if you are using Blazor server, it of course support Blazor server-side rendering by default. And there are a couple of methods in the host.chtml where you can use either server rendered or server pre-rendered or Blazor server. So these three methods are there. By default, it is Blazor server setup, and all the rendering is done on the server itself. So basically, the way Blazor works is a Blazor server works is like it does a diff between the UI changes via a SignalR connection, and update only those UI which is being changed. So these things are done very fast. So all the rendering is done on the server. This is only in case of this Blazor server. In case of Blazor WebAssembly, everything is done on the client side itself.
Sure. Okay, I think we answered that. Okay, let me add this. How Blazor is different from .NET Core MVC? Which one is better to use for project S? I think as per performance.
Blazor, see, Blazor is different from MVC. Is that because MVC is not a single page architecture based framework. Basically, MVC uses multiple page architecture where you move on different pages. Of course, routing is there and all those things is there. But Blazor server uses like single page architecture, component based architecture it uses. So Blazor component, you can reuse the Blazor component in Blazor WebAssembly as well as Blazor server. So of course, my suggestion would be that if you are going to use, like you are going to create a new ASP.NET Core application, then you should go with Blazor rather than MVC, because Blazor has much more, you can say much more versatility to be used at different places than MVC. So using MVC, you can just create web applications, whereas using Blazor, you can create different kind of applications also. But architecture is different. In case of MVC, you have multiple routed application. It uses MVC architecture, whereas in Blazor, it's single page architecture based application. So it's more comparable to, you can say, Angular React based application where you have components. So it's more comparable to that.
Okay,
hey, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
right.
I think we're seeing
sorry, Nish. Yeah. So, yeah, right. Great questions, guys. Please keep them coming, and Ravi would be there, and then he could answer on the YouTube comments, or also, like I mentioned, we have a dedicated AMA post lunch for 45 minutes. We could definitely go in depth in for all the questions. Okay. So thank you so much, Ravi. That was a great presentation. So